Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another podcast, Zoom version. Today we have Nikki from Sister in Style Online. I wanted to take a moment and introduce myself right now, what I'm wearing, and then Nikki will be able to describe her appearance. But first, we have some rules for Zoom and how we are going to process things, okay?
Sure.
I am Amanda Smith. I am a community specialist with a Deaf Community Support Center, DCSC, in Minnesota. I use she, her pronouns. I am wearing a black long sleeve with a KISS logo. It's blue and white lettering on my arm. I kind of have medium brown hair, gray eyes, a watch, and pass over to Nikki.
Hi, my name is Nikki, and my background is white. I am using a jumper tank top with black and purple flower, a floral pattern with silver necklace as well. I have glasses. I am white. I have blonde curly hair, and I think that's it. I also have a ring on.
Perfect. It's a cute outfit.
Thank you.
Okay, so for this Zoom, I request all participants keep your videos off for the duration of this. If you have any questions during this back and forth, feel free to type them into the Q&A section. We will be reading them at the end. There will be 15 minutes left for the end of this for any questions that you all have. So, first question. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what it was like growing up, and where you are now?
Absolutely. So I grew up really in New York. We moved to Maryland, and I spent most of my childhood in Maryland. I graduated from Maryland School for the Deaf and went to Gallaudet University and got a degree in criminology. Actually, I know it's a little bit of an offshoot, but that was my degree. It's where I met my husband. We moved to Virginia after that, and we had a daughter who is deaf. So we moved back to Maryland because of school. And my second son was born, Brett. My first daughter's Ariana. Second daughter, or son, excuse me, is Brett, was born in Maryland. So they go to the School for the Deaf, and in DC, worked for the federal government for 3 years when I realized that the commute, didn't actually allow me to spend a lot of time with my children because I was spending too much time in the car from Maryland to DC. It's a brutal traffic and rush hour is really not something I enjoyed. So I just didn't, I'd leave home at like 4:30 in the morning and not get home until like 5 o'clock at night. So I'd get home, the kids, when they were babies, they would be in bed by 7. I'd have like an hour and a half. So decided to just go ahead. I actually left my job working at the government and decided to try to go into self-employment, right? Entrepreneurship. Tried to see, I did direct sales, I did a lot of stuff until finally, oh my gosh, when my son has autism. He's also deaf, so we were looking for programs for him. We did find one in Indiana actually that had a program for him. It's not at the deaf school. It is at a private center that has CODA program. That is run by a CODA therapist and who signs as well. So we decided actually to move from Maryland here, meaning, sorry, I moved to Indiana from Maryland. Sorry. And then COVID hit, right? And kind of the rest was history. So we've been here since then. We're planning to move back to Maryland, but ended up staying here in Indiana. And we've been here now. I just realized that we've been here for 5 years in March. Time flies. But yes, we moved here, decided to actually start my own boutique online and founded that in 2019 and then started that was in Maryland, and then March 2020, obviously it was a short amount of time that we were there and brought us to where I am today. My warehouse is actually located in Indianapolis. It's a little bit north of Indianapolis, 2,500 square feet. We've got a small room at the front, a waiting room to come in, offices, and then in the back, I've got a warehouse. Now I've got 10 employees, that really kind of run the whole online thing through the website and through the mobile app as well that we have. Yeah.
Wow. So 2020 was about when COVID started. A little bit beforehand, what was your everyday looking like before COVID?
So, from home was pretty flexible. I would go on live maybe once every evening. At that time, it was just me. So I would do a live once in a while and ship from home too. Really, it was pretty relaxed. It was pretty chill. I did meet sometimes, I would have a small group of customers and not a huge supply, right? Just a small customer base. At that time, it was mostly Facebook and Instagram. I didn't have like the algorithm hadn't hit yet. So the algorithm, it's once you get into that, it's easier to grow a business. It was easier to grow business, I think, through social media then, and it's not like it is now, right? It's a little bit more difficult. But now at that time, uh, my husband, was trying to help ship from home, and we kept everything in one small room. That time was renting a house in Indiana. We had 4 bedrooms, and the one bedroom, the fourth bedroom, I guess was kind of like my business office room. The other one were the kids' bedrooms, and then, my bedroom, right? But that was obviously before COVID.
Okay, I think I get the idea. And then when COVID started, news started breaking. We had the everything going on or about that. Were you able to switch to Zoom? How were you working with families and friends? Like, what was the orders looking like for that? I would imagine, I would just like to understand your perspective on that.
Well, I think we started maybe January, February, right? But I was working and flying out to California frequently, so that really was around the same time, maybe February, March-ish. I remember television, right? All the news talking about COVID, and I kept my eye on it and I kept watching the news and realized that it was getting more serious and people were dying. It was getting a little bit more frightening. People were telling, us to stay at home. And I remember when my husband got home and would clean everything and wash everything and disinfect everything and, hand sanitizer and take your shoes off. And that time I really realized that it was kind of scary. There was a real tense moment. Going grocery shopping and using masks, getting home and taking everything off and leaving it in the garage even to go into the wash. I remember those little moments. The stay at home, my daughter's school closed. My son was going to an ABA therapy at the time. ABA therapy is under medical. It was closed because it was open actually during COVID, just because it is a medical reason, but it was closed briefly uh, for the remainder of the semester. But the question is interesting because it was concerning, right? I was watching TV, and that's where I learned all the news was from the television.
Interesting. Yeah, I've asked many people what they've learned on that, and it's really a variety of experiences.
Interesting.
When they announced the pandemic, many businesses and schools really closed down. And how did that impact yours? I mean, working from home, your family and business all being there?
Yeah, I mean, my business was there. My kids stayed home. I usually would bring them to school and then do a lot of stuff at home. And now everybody was in the house at the same time. I had my daughter's school, had to make sure she was good. Luckily, my husband's work was closed, so he could take care of the kids while I sort of tried to focus online. And online, I noticed the orders spiked, just absolutely skyrocketed. More people were watching from home. So people stayed home and watched more. People were afraid to go out shopping, right? So then they would order from us. They would order from me, clothes or selling like t-shirts or sweatpants or just anything that they needed at home, right? Some comfy clothes. And honestly, I had to change my orders for apparel, like outdoor clothes, like going on a date or dinner date or like jeans or stuff has changed radically. It got to, comfortable shorts, comfortable sweaters, sweatpants, outfits that were like good for staying at home. Because people I needed, all of this stuff, they just didn't care if it was fancy or not anymore. It just orders took off. And I noticed that that was a huge spike in my business. And I became a little bit overwhelmed because, I mean, if you recall, my fourth bedroom, right? I only had four bedrooms. And so then we ended up taking over the whole house. It took over my master bedroom and all of the other rooms too. My kids ended up sleeping with us just because there was so much stuff, right? We were ordering and packing and shipping and it just I drowned myself in it. I think that, I had some there were people who were willing to help, but I was too nervous because it was a frightening time.
Wow. And then after, I mean, the business really just kept growing, and then you were able to get out and start a business outside of the house.
So when I I was exhausted, right? I was working all the time. I was ordering clothes. It was pretty crazy, honestly, that whole period. I told my husband that I think I needed some help, right? And I didn't know how to do it during COVID, all of the stay away, like the social distancing. My husband is Mike, is his name, and he suggested that I look for just like small storage space, right? A small storage room. So I figured it was a good idea. I looked online, right? I ended up finding one that was like 1,000 square feet. Um, was not too far away. There wasn't any like lease or anything, so I could just decide month by month. If I changed my mind, it wasn't a huge commitment. I went ahead, moved all of our stuff over there. And then the person who helped me actually came and stayed. We stayed 6 feet away, right? In 1,000 square feet, we had a little bit more room, so we could. It was actually kind of perfect. Um, that just really helped me grow. Moving over to that bigger space helped so much. And that way I could order more inventory. I could meet the supply, meet the demand, and going over to that new place, that 1,000 square feet for a year actually is where we stayed.
Yeah, 1 year during the pandemic, I feel like would work out pretty well. And during that time, you kept developing, and you realized that you needed a bigger space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. I looked through so many pictures. Oh, I think probably 100% increase. Oh my gosh, people who helped me in working and ended up working for me. That whole social distancing thing that we had to comply with. The kids were sick, they had to stay home, right? We worked together through a lot of the pandemic stuff. So much. It was really interesting how uh, people how the business grew because people were staying at home. It actually kind of helped us move into a bigger space and find then I actually found one that was over 3,000 square feet and did require a lease for 5 years. I mean, I'm now on my third year now. So it's really just even we're growing so rapidly. We're actually pretty good right now. I'm starting to sort of level off, be a little bit more stable. I've got some ideas, but that whole time during COVID was just yeah, it was a huge spike. Huge.
Wow. So I'm curious if you could explain how you came up with the idea of Sisters in Style. Where did that come from?
So you remember I said that the stay-at-home orders, all of those, when when I left my federal job, I went and worked for direct sales. At that time, it was um, Agnes and Dora. And I don't know if that rings a bell at all, but it's similar
Yeah,
to
if you own a few of
LuLaRoe.
their properties.
I know, but they shut down. But anyways, I did join them, and because my sister said like we could work together, right? And we could come up with a name, and that's how we came up with it, Sisters in Style. But now it's, my sister isn't in the picture anymore. She's actually working teaching. Um, but at that time, we decided to go ahead and switch over to owning like an e-commerce boutique online. And my sister and I together um, my sister moved. She was living in Maryland. I was living in Indianapolis or Indiana, and we had a hard time. We realized that it just wasn't working. So my sister decided to go ahead and actually step out of the picture. I took over with Sisters in Style. The name just kind of stuck, but it felt like we kind of came up with this community of people that we were able to make friends with one another during lives, right? And so it was kind of like a sisterhood type of vibe, and we were able to support each other through that too. So I just kind of, yeah, Sisters in Style, the name just stuck.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It just worked out perfectly.
Oh, and the other thing too, I want to add to that is when I moved here to Indiana, I was looking for 1,000 square feet. Remember, I had said 1,000 square feet at that time. I was actually looking for something comparable. I was wondering about pricing. So I'd looked in Frederick in Maryland. I wanted to know what their prices were like and so that I could compare. And if you look in Frederick, Maryland, for where I had found the original available space, like a storefront there in Frederick in Maryland, I found out that it's just tough, right? The availability is it's scarce for businesses. They usually stay for a very long time in that area. The place actually was a DJ before and they went out of business because of COVID. Nobody was having weddings or anything or any events like that. So the DJ left, and so it was a small little area, little space. I decided to actually text my sister and asked her if she wouldn't mind checking it out to see if it was available, see if it was free, if we would like it. She went ahead, took a look, fell in love with it. We took it. And I had a storefront for Sisters in Style because my sister, actually, her name is Amelia, and she ran a store there from a distance. It was actually kind of perfect. And one thing led to another. My sister actually decided she wanted to move to Indiana, and everything changed after a while. But now we actually storefront is no more. But if my sister Amelia had stayed there, she definitely would have continued to be Sisters in Style in Maryland. So, things change though as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely. Just checking the time here, making sure that we're doing all right for the interpreters so they can switch. But um, let's see, where are we at here? So within the closing business, I've always tried to picture what that is like running and operating something like that.
Well, it's funny. Growing up, I always wanted to work for FBI. Honestly, that was my goal. That was my dream. I always wanted to work for the FBI. That's the reason that I got a degree in criminology. That kind of explains that. Because I did work for the FBI for 3 years, but I realized that with kids and all of I just felt like my life journey, like I had ticked that box, right? Like I had done what I set out to do and I was happy with that and I'd done it. And I still have some friends who work there actually who I'm still in touch with, but I was done. So being at home and being creative, working in direct sales, really, I have to tell you, I love I love design. I love sales. I love all of these things. I love the Scentsy. I used to work with Scentsy. And then I did close to the heart, and that's scrapbooking stuff. A lot of direct sales I worked with. What else did I do? I did purses. I sold purses. I did the initials ink. It's almost like 31. I don't know if you know 31 at all, but
Yep.
anyways, so that store, those sales, I just have loved always working. I was always the best seller. I was great with hearing people, but I always had a hard time feeling like I was helping them make money, right? And not like my community growing. Like I didn't see that. And that's where I felt like I was in direct sales. I realized that I wanted to be doing my own thing where I could invest money in the deaf employees and kind of that deaf ecosystem. Um, and the direct sales, they did have all of these different Agnes and Dora and all of these different apparel options, but I decided to just kind of do my own thing. And I was able to meet the supply and demand was there. So I never thought that I would own a clothing store. I never thought in a million years, but here we are.
So, and then your family is also pretty involved with the business, right? Your parents know, or is it
No,
just you?
actually, yeah. So my sister was, my parents know. My grandmother owned a business. She was an entrepreneur. My uncle did own a business as well, but my sister was the only one who was involved from my family.
Nice. You can kind of pick up some tips, get feelers on that from grandparents.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then I'm curious about your kids. I know they went to school that closed down
Yes.
briefly. So what were they doing during that school? Were they just sitting on their hands, or what were they doing during that time?
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's lucky, right? Because the School for the Deaf had already prepared the kids to do work through their iPads. They already had a program and all of these things like already set. So when they closed, everything just transitioned online pretty seamlessly. Um, it was there wasn't really much confusion. It was a pretty smooth transition. I'm lucky that it worked out. I was really impressed with ISD, with Indiana School for the Deaf. My daughter, at that time, oh my gosh, I think that was first and second grade. She was pretty young. It was a challenge to do virtual school for that age, but she did through the video phone. She talked to her friends and, got some young exposure to games and if it wasn't for COVID, I think she would have done sports and other stuff like that. But yeah, COVID, gosh, had such a huge impact. My daughter did go to school virtually. And then as for my son, no, he actually stayed home and didn't really do much of anything at that time. He was so young. I think he was four. I think maybe five, 4 or 5. So young. And the therapist at school decided to actually open a 4 or 5 week, they just opened because it was a medical building. They weren't supposed to be closed anyways. So my son, fortunately, I was able to, I was a little bit hesitant about bringing him back with COVID, but I didn't really have much of a choice. The masks, luckily, my son was okay using a mask. I was able to bring him and give him that space. One time did have COVID. My daughter and husband, everybody kind of got it once. I was forced to fly to work during COVID, and so I used masks. I did a lot of hand sanitizer, but didn't actually get it. It was so weird. Everybody else in my family, I don't know how it turned out that COVID hit who it hit, but yeah, it was weird.
And to clarify, your daughter's school, it closed for how long?
So they closed in March and from March to June, they were closed. And then the following year in the fall, so August, they reopened, completely reopened in August that year, and then continued to remain open until November when COVID kind of hit. Again, and they closed in November again, and then December to January, I believe, Martin Luther King Day, I think. That's when they reopened again the following year and then have remained open since. Yeah, for that the rest of that year. And then yeah, that's how it's remained.
Interesting. It's different. It's interesting to see how different states handled everything.
Yeah.
So with school and everything, getting used to like home life, was that a difficult transition, or were they just thrilled to be away from school?
It was exciting, right? 7, 8 years old. I think that helped, right? It was exciting. I found out, they had face shields too. They had face shields, so they didn't have to use the masks either. So that was cool. I know it was really nice. It was nice. It was nice. But I do
Mhm.
remember during COVID in class, some of the students would have to stay home for 2 weeks because some kids would get COVID and then go back. And it was really, I think there was one time that she had to stay home, and then my son actually also. There were a couple instances, but out of the 3 year span, I think it was just once or twice.
Yeah, I remember my two kids. I mean, they're also quite young. They
Yeah.
went back to school, and then one of the students had close contact and they had to come back.
Yes.
And I think everything was shut down for a
Oh my
month, and every
gosh.
kid just had to stay home. And they're just, you know, there were so many close contacts and so many people that were, you know, they would have
Right.
symptoms and then they would be stuck home for 5 days. And
Yeah,
so
I
it was
remember.
really frustrating having to deal with that. And there was so much education and socializing time that
I
kids miss, you know?
know. I know. Yeah. Um, I did. I remember pictures. I've got pictures still because I wanted to document it, right? I wanted to remember my daughter and her stay at home and on the video phone or virtual school. Like, I remember it's just, oh my gosh, I should try to ask her about it now if she remembers all those things, right? I
Yeah.
should ask her. I'm curious.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see her perspective, what she does remember. I mean, I'm sure my son, he's funny. I mean, throughout Zoom classes, his teacher would text us and be like, I mean, we were the only deaf parents at the time, and it's like, hey, I think Aiden is taking pictures of himself while on Zoom. He would be there and just like watching, and it's like
Oh my
you would see
gosh.
the picture, but he would never move.
What a
And then I'd go over
smarty.
and he's just laughing and laughing and
Oh,
laughing. And it's like he would notice that he was caught and he would take it down and he actually get involved in class again. But
oh
I think they're
man.
about the same age, our kids. But, I don't know how to do that. And at the time, that also impacted my work. And so, like, there's so much learning that we had to do, but the kids
Right.
were ahead of us.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing. That's for me to even just to see what you're doing in your work and teaching. It was nice to see how I could be involved in their teaching, right? And like exercising with them and what they were learning. It was pretty cute. It was cute. It was cool to see it.
Yeah, I remember some of the assignments that they would send us to do with the kids, like for PE. They would do like a little course in the backyard to like run around and play
Yes.
with. That was really nice for like parents to be able to connect with kids a little bit more.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And you know, the other thing too, the state of Indiana had what's called EBT cards. They had EBT cards that they
Yep.
sent out to everybody actually to cover lunches, right? Because
Oh,
technically my
nice.
daughter is supposed to go to ISD, and since she wasn't at that time, lunch it just went over to that card and they would fill that card so we could go grocery shopping for their lunches essentially. So that was really helpful. Yeah, it was so nice to have that, the EBT card. And I didn't realize that a lot of people in other states didn't necessarily have that. Indiana did. Yeah.
Yeah, we got that later. But that would have been like, uh, yeah, I don't know if it was like a stimulus or what, but it was something that was like, oh, here you go. We can give you a little extra
Ah,
to help you out, you and your
yes.
kids. I think it
Yes.
was something related to that, but
I know.
it took a while for us to get that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The stimulus, I remember.
I mean, again, interesting to see how different states reacted.
Yeah. Okay. So you did say that you were flying a lot for work at the time. Um, did you have to do testing, like COVID tests? I can't remember. Did you have to show a negative or prove before you flew?
Yeah, you would have to do that nasal swab if you're traveling around the US, but after a while you didn't really need to do that.
Lucky.
I remember I was flying around a lot for work and having to get prepped and figure out interpreters, coordinate all of that, hotel tickets, everything. We would get that work out. We would get ready in the morning, go to the airport, get there a little bit early. And my son had like woken up and he had a fever, and I was like, okay, feeling hot. So we did the COVID tests at home, and I tested him myself, and he tested positive, meaning that I had
Oh
to cancel
no.
everything and stay home. And my son, the next day was feeling fine, but still had to stay home
Right.
for another week.
Oh,
But, it really affected my travel. But it did also give me some extra time. But I remember having to cancel everything. Oof. I was flying to California one time and I was going out to Santa Monica Beach, out to the pier, and it was empty there. Everything there was closed. And it was really interesting how it impacted the economy out there. You'd go out to eat, and some places you could order inside, but you'd have to take it out to your car. Um, and then you'd go outside, and everybody, if they're like delivering food, they have all the gloves and masks and everything. But California was so strict with COVID compared to
right.
Indiana. I mean, the population is a really different size. You know, per capita, California is much more dense, and they can't afford that kind of breakout because it really will just spread. Um, but the culture is also just different of people going out, interacting with each other, and versus staying home. So it was really interesting to go out to California, knowing it's so dense and seeing it just empty, nobody out and about.
It's kind of nice and quiet though, right? If you could see everything, but it's also a little bit frightening. It's almost like a ghost town. It's like a little
Yeah.
eerie. Wow.
Yeah, but eating in the car, all of the restaurants were closed. You couldn't go inside and eat at all.
Wow. That's right. I totally forgot about that. Oh my gosh, we were so limited in our options. If you were,
Yeah.
landed, it's like you couldn't just walk somewhere and get something. You couldn't do a drive-through. You'd have to have a car to go through to pick up the food, to curbside
Right.
to, oh my gosh.
Totally right.
Wow. But flying, I mean, were they full or were there less people in the flights?
There was a few people. There would typically be some pretty empty spaces, but we would also be on smaller planes.
Okay.
And then there would be just spaces that were emptied out, and then afterwards they would have to sanitize and scrub everything after we got off. And but yeah, I mean, it was just really interesting having to sanitize every time there was a flight. Crazy.
Wow. So, I mean, did the flights comparatively to your recent flights, was it a lot bigger?
Oh, now they're all full.
Wow.
I think 2 years ago, my kids, we were going out for spring break. We went to Florida and
Nice.
full airplane, full. You know, the
Wow.
airport was busy. Yeah, they weren't thinking of like having to clean everything. There wasn't anything for masks, no hand sanitizing.
What a difference. To full flights to nothing to ghost town and now back to normal-ish, I guess.
Right.
Wow. Wow. Huh. What what a journey. Oh my gosh, so much change that we went through. You from Maryland to Indiana, there's school, therapy, flights, flying. Oh my gosh, what a journey. Huh.
Yeah, now we're finally starting to get back to stable. School is going all right. You know, I'm flying a lot for work still, but we were able to think about the kids' schedule. I mean, during COVID, it was so easy,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't have a lot of time for vacation. It was mostly just working, and now,
I know now you've got it on the brain.
yeah. So now with my husband's work and everything, it does become a challenge, but everything is much more chill and stable now, much more livable.
Oh,
I try to remember that, how scary that was of a situation, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to make sure I keep an eye on our time too here. Um, I did see some people typing a little bit. I guess we can try to do a little bit of a Q&A here. Let's see what we've got.
Wow.
Oh, there we go. I'll go ahead and sign here. It says Lauren Lauer said yes. Definitely different. My daughter is actually, she was a senior during the pandemic, a senior in high school, and graduated alone because it was, she was the only one that was allowed on stage, one at a time. They had to, each senior family was able to show up. They walked across the stage. It was weird. It was different from a regular graduation ceremony. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, very true. And sports too, some high schools were their varsity sports were being missed, whatever year they were in, like COVID really impacted that as well.
Oh my gosh, they didn't even go back to sports right away?
Right? People missed out on their athletic years, like their senior year, they were really excited, looking forward to playing volleyball, basketball, whatever it was, and then they missed out on the full season. But it
Wow.
was interesting. I was reading some article that was saying that kids who are involved in sports now, junior, senior year, now they're a little bit behind. They've stayed behind to so their age range and maturity has gotten really impacted and delayed from that. And I think
Wow.
there's really interesting research that's revolving around that.
I can't imagine. Of course, right? If you stay at home and you don't have a lot of options or a lot of choices, I mean, you can play outside, but there's no like peers, for instance.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
My daughter played volleyball, and during the time she had to wear a mask during the
Oh
whole
my
thing. I
gosh, that's
remember that.
right. Oh my gosh, that's right. My son played basketball with a mask. Oh my gosh, the whole team, they had to run around in masks. Hats
Oh, that'd be so
off.
hard.
Hats off. Yeah. I don't think it was that long until they got a little bit more lenient with the masks.
Sure.
Yeah. I think Louisiana School for the Deaf. I don't think they had almost 2 years they didn't have sports.
Whoa.
Yeah, the news I'm looking now, apparently the South, I guess, are a little bit, they had a little bit more of a significant impact from COVID. Based on my research, it seems like they had a delayed response and then ended up, getting a lot of COVID cases and longer school closures,
Interesting.
etc. Yeah, yeah. Just the impact academics and Minnesota here, it wasn't too long. I think, luckily the summer helped, right? They were only closed from March and then summer and then went back to school and that was hybrid.
Same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then went back.
Yeah, they had gone full back after the summer, I believe. I'm trying to remember. There was a little bit of back and forth. They had like the A and B group, um, on week, off week. I'm trying to remember that. I think there was like a weird like bus schedule that came along with that as well.
Oh,
And with the
yeah.
dorms and everything, you were like, just go back full time. You could have done the A and B, but it just would have been too much to have figured out and too much to keep track of.
Lucky, we've got this podcast on YouTube. You can go and watch it afterwards if you forget.
Yeah, when the kids grow up, I'll be able to look back to remember.
Oh, yeah, we did do hybrid for a while now that I remember, and then we went back full time. That's right. Oh my gosh. The kids, their attitudes were different. I think, yeah. No filter, no boundaries, very laissez-faire, right? A lot of social media. Um, a little bit less interest in sports, I noticed. Like they're interested more in playing video games, like the popular games or talking on the phone as opposed to before, right? Of course, like, you know, uh, technology wasn't as big of a deal. And I think that it's becoming a little bit harder now to shoo them into outdoors or things like that. And it's getting better. I've noticed it's like they're relearning how to get out of the house and get back into the way that it was before.
Sometimes my daughter, though, I feel like she sleeps more now. And she can just like sleep, she'll sleep, get up, and then just like hop on the bus right away. But um, she used to meet a lot of friends through sports. And she's been really much more involved with like the iPad and sports and everything. And it is really interesting.
Let me ask you now, do you guys have a specific start time? Is that how it worked with you guys, like when you were online virtual school? Did you have a start and end time? How did that work?
Yeah, no, it was pretty structured. We would have time for them to hop on, and there was a lot of time that we were able to like invest in time with them where we would sit together.
Yeah.
And there was all like the Zoom time, everything would finish up at 3. We would get home, and the teacher would be there at school. They wouldn't have to go home. They would all be able to stay there.
Wow.
And so, it'd be nice to be able to like have Zoom and use that to interact with each other while they're there at school.
Interesting. That's interesting. I don't even know if you actually even know the answer or if you've heard. I'm wondering if most of the kids struggled with the online learning too. Did it impact like their actual learning capacity, or have most of them been able to, were a lot of the parents able to support their kids through this?
Yeah, I mean, with my son and daughter, it's a little bit different. With my son having a learning disability, um, it really hit harder. But being able to go to school after things opened up helped. But and then also having ABA therapy, so that helped, and there was support there. And my sister moved here, and her daughter was struggling a little bit and was able to help out with my kids. But there is a full year of remote learning, and my niece, she didn't do well with iPads. And when she moved here to the deaf school, we were, she just fell in love with that program. You know, that was something that worked out really well for her, being able to be in person and being able to do that. But unfortunately, they ended up moving back. So,
Hmm. Yeah, it seems like it really, oof, gosh, a whole year of distance learning with no
hmm
connection to people. That's so tough, right? Just seeing people on a screen all day, every day, and now trying to sit with the kids while you're also working, that's stressful. That's a lot of stress for a family.
yeah. And also, like, I have friends in California, and we were able to socialize through camp, or we were friends through camp. And but with distance learning, my kids, their reading, their math, um, everything compared with the kids who had schools that were open, we're able to see a difference between my kids and their kids.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah. Wow. Wow. It's just so tough. I just, each state was different and some were hit harder than others, so it was an easier transition. I can't imagine how hard that must have been the decision for every single state to make separately too.
Right. And with my sister, she had people in the community that were talking about lives and how it was impacted from COVID, but they were really able to support each other. And that was nice to see that, you weren't alone. Everybody had their journey, but if you recognize that you had community, you would have a lot more people that would help you get through that. If you go through with other people, we see other people, we see each other's lives. I think that really helped us thrive during the pandemic.
That's so cool. You felt like your live really had the space for you to be able to have this with your community and support one another through your
Right.
lives. That's such a rare gem. That's so great that you had that. Oh gosh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
that's true.
let me hold on. I think go ahead and ask questions. I didn't realize we were just kind of getting into a conversation here. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's see. Lauren said yes, she agrees. It's really nice to be a part of a common place, right? When you go on live, the same sort of community, a common community. It's really nice. Let me take a look here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything or any questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the comments or in the, uh, no videos at this time, but we will read them and then I will sign them for everybody else.
Sure, sure.
I see here Sarah, who said hello. Hi from Canada. As far as schools are concerned, during the pandemic, I noticed that children had a hard time, but I missed they missed socialization. When they went back to school in person, it's like they had to learn all over again those skills and how to socialize with one another.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they definitely forgot.
definitely. Absolutely.
Hello,
Oh,
hello.
Amanda. Hi, hello. Hi, Amanda from Michigan. Hi. Cool. Welcome. Okay. I think that's it. If you want to have, if there's any questions, any burning questions, go ahead, please, please ask away. Anyways, since I don't have any questions, I have a question for you. What is your next 5 years? What do you have for Sisters in Style? What are you working on?
Right now, we just hired a new manager. Oh, looks like someone else just asked that same question. You
Oh,
guys got the
look, read
same
my
thoughts.
mind, read my mind.
For a 5-year plan, we're going to be hiring an operations manager. So we're doing interviews for that. Once
Okay.
we get that in place, we'll have two stores that we're gonna be really getting going, and so we're going to be doing business through that structure and really focusing on the growth there of the company.
Hmm.
And we want to be adding more lives. That's one of the goals. So adding more to social media and everything, and really focusing on the individual product and trying to grab more people's attention. Yeah, so we also do bachelorette parties, so we do tickets for that as well, and so we'll have a lot of people that are coming for that, those kinds of events, making friends over like the last 5 years, and now finally being able to meet in person. But we're really planning on growing a lot and seeing how like we can the pop-up events that we'll be able to have as well. We have weekend events like that people are able to come shop, try on clothes. So we'll have big events like that. And then that's just one of the thoughts that we have, those pop-up events.
Yay!
Um, and then we'll also just keep trying to expand that lives team. And then hopefully we'll also be able to continue to grow in the other things. We'll be able to back away a little bit, kind of focus on other things in life and just keep growing in that.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. Right, though. Oh my gosh, to get there feels like you've checked so many boxes off just in 2 years. The team that you've got now, oh my gosh, it's so exciting to just see you grow.
Yeah, it's great to just let it go and be able to see the vision coming to fruition. But we're also adding teas, we're adding shirts, and so there's a lot of growth within that as to what we are adding. And then we're also doing fundraising for a nonprofit organization.
Hmm.
And so we're starting to contact more people about that as well and considering what our full services could look like.
Hmm.
So, like if we're doing orders for shirts, we could do that and then send that out. Like we could be developing shirts for other people, or people could order through online and we would send directly to customers. Um,
Wow.
so we're just really getting
Maine,
introduced into everything.
Maine,
So we're getting
the
introduced
state,
into Maine. Yeah. So we're
Lewiston.
starting into the state of Maine, and we have a one that's 2,000, 3,000 square feet. Um, and we're noticing that there really aren't any deaf businesses out there that do that full kind of services. So we're going to be expanding into that region as well.
Thank you so much for doing that. That really is 24,000. Oh my gosh. That is event. That was such a
Hmm.
that was tragic in Lewiston. Oh my gosh. I know. I know. That's pretty cool though. That's a new thing that I think you're right, right? I don't recall anybody else ever doing that. That's amazing. Um, Let me ask you all of the things that you have. Oh, yeah. That's fine. Please go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, it's fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, my phone, people are just trying to get at me. So sorry.
That's all good. Let me ask you, um, In picking clothes, some designs, I mean, do you have a person who will design those things for you that you sell? I mean, what is that actual process? What does that look like?
For tees or general clothing.
Just in general.
So it's both. It really depends. So we have someone that is from California. We partner with her. She's a designer. And so they'll pick out different things and kind of go with different styles that we like that we picked out, and we'll send that over. And there's some clothings that are just getting really, really popular right now. And so
Wow.
we're trying to pick out color palettes and everything and send that over for the fall and getting prepped out for that season.
Cool. I'm excited to see the release in September, I'm sure. Oh, before
And so,
then.
yeah, we're trying to do an event before July and get prepped for that.
Mm, it means that we're going to have a lot of surprises coming our way at that bash party. How exciting.
Yeah, we're going to be starting the sales of tickets soon.
And you said how many? It's up to 200 or no limit?
200. We it's a wedding venue, so we have some food, entrees, drinks. We have two people that
Cool.
are going to be coming. They're performers. We got all the stuff.
Oh, I have faith that it'll work out. I'm sure it'll fill up fast. I'm
Oh,
sure.
for sure.
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, you got to come.
I'm hoping to. I'm hoping to. Do you know what the dates are?
August 10th. It's a Saturday.
Okay. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. I'll keep that in mind. Oh my goodness. I'm again seeing if there are any questions, any other questions that came up. Let me take a look. Oh, yep. Okay. Same two people had asked about vision for 5 years, sort of the 5-year plan, same thing. All right.
I just want to make clear that we really have a plan to invest in the storefront. Right now, not in Maryland. That's not a plan that we have of getting going.
Do you feel like it's just easier to do it online than in a storefront?
It's within that system, it just there's so much data in that, and we're looking at like the walking score for Frederick, and they have a lot of people traffic going out throughout the day, going to coffee shops and everything. Um, so people just live in the area and they walk around. And so there's a lot of store traffic that happens within that area of Frederick. And in Indianapolis, there is a lot more of like department stores. So people are driving in, they're parking, they're walking into shopping centers, then they're
Mm,
going back to their cars and they're leaving, compared to, just walking around, grabbing coffee, doing all of that in Frederick.
mm-hmm.
But within like the downtown, we have a specific shopping area that we like will be able to go to, and that's really easy. And then within Fredericksburg, I think maybe like all of the deaf people that I think like 80% live within like a small community area. So it's easy to find people who can work that store. But in Indianapolis, I mean, it's very city. It's not very country. So a lot of people just live very spread out. I
Mm-hmm.
have some
Mm-hmm.
friends that live 45 minutes away and 30 minutes the other way. And so, there's not that condensed grouping of people. And there's not really as much community within it just because everybody is so far away. But I really enjoy the
Mm-hmm.
flexibility of my hours, not having to go and worry about closing down the shop. With the storefront, there's so much responsibility of opening and managing the store.
Sure.
But we're also trying to look at, Deaf Nation and
Oh,
maybe doing something like that. I'm not sure if that's going to work. We're testing out ideas and we're just going to see how it goes. We have our online SIO and we'll just go from there.
sure. I remember 2 years ago, I think that Sisters in Style went to Deaf Nation, right? Because
Yep.
I know I'd bought something. Um, but I don't think it was a pop-up. It was just a booth, I think, at that time. You were just doing some testing.
Yeah, we had brought some clothes. I think the second and third time we had brought some clothes and we had just broke even.
Got it.
With the expenses for hotels and flights, we paid out of pocket. We had some people that came in, we paid them as well. That wasn't volunteered at all.
Wow.
And renting the car and everything. There were so many expenses that went into it. Food, more of the clothing. The expenses really just piled up.
Sure.
But the with that and the sales, I think it really came out to be about even. Um, but we did get an app that is able to be downloaded, and that's something that I think for Deaf Nation would work out really great, and
Yeah,
that would
I
help us
know.
manage that all a little bit better. But we have to look big picture and just make the tough decisions, see what makes sense, what clothing would work best for that kind of venue.
Yeah, sure, right? You make some good points. Yeah, just see what's there, see what's ready, see from there. I mean, from your perspective as an owner, it's not exactly profitable to break even after all of those expenses. That's tough. That's a tough call.
Yeah, and with the kids as well, I mean, there's sending them to and from school. There's also a lot of costs with that. And then we have employees that we need to pay for all day of work. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, so if you go to the Deaf Nation, it means that you would drive, or because I mean, I can't imagine what it would cost to bring everything and all the carry-ons and all of that luggage and everything on a flight.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a lot of shipping things, but with all the boxes and clothes, I mean, a lot
Mm,
of times it's just shipping. The convention center typically, or conventions, they typically have costs for shipping and then all
wow,
the costs for like having a booth for a day. And, there's so much that goes into it.
sure. I think it may be too bad it's not in Indiana, right?
Right.
Uh, mm. Um, we're just about to wrap up. We've got 2 minutes left. If there's any final questions that you might have for Nikki, please speak now. Let's see. Okay. Well, going once, going twice. Okay. All right. It seems like I asked the one question that everybody else asked, and nobody else had anything else. Thank you so much for your time, Nikki, for joining us
For sure.
today. Thank you so, so much. We learned a lot of interesting stuff about your journey, about Sisters in Style, your family, everything that you guys went through, the how it pandemic impacted you. It was so interesting to, and it's been interesting to see the variation in states and schools and the whole journey.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
And thank you everyone who joined us today, and thank you to both of the interpreters for interpreting. Thank you so much.
perfect. I appreciate talking with you as well. I mean, it's nice to look back at COVID and everything that went by. I think it just passes by so quickly. It's nice to take a second and appreciate that.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much. I hope to see you in person someday soon, or hopefully at the bash, you know?
Definitely. Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
again, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, have a nice night.
Bye-bye.